Welcome to the Purple Rock. I am non-robotic John, back from vacation and ready to podcast again. Thank you to Emma for filling in for me, but it is time to send Emma back to the minor leagues where she belongs. And speaking of the minor leagues, Andy, let's talk about San Juan del Sur.
Oh, does it deserve that after the... Yeah, it still deserves that. Never mind.
I will say it moved up, if we're going to stick with the baseball metaphor here. It moved in from single A ball to double A ball.
I'd say slow your roll on that one. We'll get into this, but yeah, I think it was a worthy episode of television last night. However, I could signal the doom of the season, and maybe it's also the explanation of why the early parts of the season wasn't very good.
Hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. That's for a discussion for later.
It's just a lot of people are like, hey, it's now out of the conversation of worst ever. I'm like, let's still have that conversation. We're going to have that a few more weeks of that conversation.
By virtue of having one good episode, it has moved ahead of Nicaragua and Redemption Island and South Pacific.
Again, I think everybody's a little farther down on Redemption Island. It's like, I'd hate to see Rob. It's terrible seeing Rob run roughshod. I was like, I'd love to see Rob run roughshod over this entire cast.
Actually, I do think I would enjoy that.
Yeah, it's more entertaining seeing somebody do anything competently than what we've been getting so far. And on that note, we thought we saw somebody somewhat competent in Jeremy, and so long, Jeremy.
Yeah, we thought we had a solid C+ there, maybe a B- even, but Jeremy's blindsided. So, first of all, were you blindsided by this?
Ish. I mean, I'm not gonna flat out say, oh yeah, I saw it coming, but I saw the seeds. When he was on Exile Island, I started to entertain the notion of, is Jeremy going home tonight? Because they gave him 2 segments at Exile Island, a place where they barely care at all. They basically just like, yep, that person's there, like we said they would be. If there's idol in play, they'll say, okay, hear them searching for an idol, and then that's it. But they came back after commercial and showed him look again the very next day. Instead of showing anybody on reward, like they didn't show the reward at all. And
no, they did, briefly.
No, they showed Jeremy looking at the people on the yacht, but I don't think they showed the feast, the spread.
Yeah, they showed them eating sandwiches and brownies and such.
You might be thinking of an online hidden scene. I don't know if it actually showed on the air.
Maybe it all runs together. The season's crap, Andy. It all runs together.
Well, I think it would have noticed a bit more, because then we could have finally had a top 5 power rankings of food on San Juan del Sur. And look everybody, that still might happen, because I put it in an order a bit, because we've had 4 prominent food edits so far. But yeah, so when Jeremy talks again, a bit of my radar went off, in that the person who goes home seems to get a lot of airtime that episode. I dismissed it a bit, and that Jeremy has also always gotten the most amount of airtime. And that it was also seemed like it was setting up the story of, him figuring out John had the idol. But then as that story started to develop a bit more, I'm like, Jeremy might be in some trouble here. How about yourself?
I'll totally own up to the fact that I was blindsided by this. Like, I thought that was the red herring they're going to throw out right before Tribal Council. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion of it. Although, the one thing I will say is when they were actually going to vote, I was like, that seems odd, because normally it's a little more clear it's down to 2 choices. And I was like, I don't think I really locked it down in the edit that it's down to Reed and Keith, which they should have, because that's how Survivor works. And even more bizarrely, earlier in this episode, I had the same thing that you did. I was like, man, they're showing Jeremy at Exile a lot. And so I thought, well, why could they be doing this? And my mind went back to, this is Earl in Survivor Fiji. They're showing him struggling, he's going to overcome this, blah, blah, blah. They gave him some screen time because he's the winner. Apparently not.
Yeah. And for me, what really set it off wasn't just the time, but what they were showing, which is that he was futilely unable to find an idol. Which is like, are they trying to tell us that immunity would be really nice for Jeremy right now?
See, I thought that was really setting up the conversation that he was going to have with John.
Yeah, and when the convo had, I did put it in the back of my mind. Now, one other thing I will say is I was semi-spoiled in that I got a notification on my phone that somebody enjoyed this episode. So that told me That at least pick like, if it's Reed, I don't know if that'd be like, hey, finally a great episode,
Yeah, there's a whole lot of Reed haters in your timeline that are like,
well, more just that was what it was supposed to be, right? Like,
yes.
Not interesting just picking off, Josh's partner the episode after. So it was like, I was on the lookout for maybe something more. Now, Keith getting blindsided would have been something more, like I wasn't completely tipped off that like, Jeremy was going to go home or it was going to be huge or anything like that. But it was enough to make, maybe have me looking a bit more for signals.
And so here's another odd thing. As I mentioned, we gave Jeremy maybe a C+, B- range. Shouldn't he have sniffed out that something was up when they suggested a vote split? Because assuming that the vote split and they might have structured it somehow differently. But if you're actually going to split your votes 3-3 and go after Keith and Reed, you're on the losing end because it's 4 of them against your 3 votes.
Yeah, and you worked this out, but
yes.
And I had the same feeling. They believed that they had Reed on their side. Yeah, he had been talking enough to, John and Jacqueline, to Missy and Baylor, that there's like, okay, Reed's gonna vote Keith, so that's how they could do the split. And it wouldn't have been 3-3, it could have been like 4-2 or something like that. But 2 wouldn't have been enough, I guess, so.
Well, at the same time, don't get cute. Because...
Oh yeah, no. I think it was a bad move, but I don't know if that should have been enough to tip Jeremy off. For all we know, that was like his idea.
It could be. I mean, it's not like we've said, both Jeremy and Josh, while they might have been the best narrators of the season, it's not like they were both stellar players. So it could have been his idea. He didn't seem like the total strategic mastermind. He did seem like the best of a bad bunch, though, I think.
Yeah, and I'll get into that right now. I think one of the reasons why this season has sucked is, the simple is casting, right? And you can just say casting is why any season sucks. It's impossible to have a good season with bad casting, and it's probably the reverse is also true. I'm not sure there's been any bad seasons with good casts. Right. But in particular, this is a cast of people who are not fans of the show. And I'm not somebody who's very dogmatic about recruits versus applicants, because plenty of recruits have also been fans of the show, or just fans of this type of, strategy and thus can get up to speed. But I actually had time to listen to Josh's exit interview before this one, and I usually take everything somebody says in an exit interview with a bit of a grain of salt because, it's their story, right?
Everybody full of salt.
Yeah, everybody's is the star of their own story. But one thing he said that I think the evidence seems to bear out is the people who knew Survivor were quickly deemed threats by the majority of the cast who did not.
I think see that being a reality.
So, right away, Val, then Kelly, Dale, Josh, Jeremy. It's just like, oh god, these people know Survivor, that's not fair. And they've been targeted. So I think that's why the show has even sucked even more. And thus, maybe a Jeremy or a Josh would have been just fine. Maybe they even would have been stellar if they were working under just even better circumstances, not even ideal. But in this, when the majority of the people have no understanding of what Survivor is, I don't know what you can do. It's only like if you're playing poker with a bunch of children that don't even know how to count, you're probably not getting them to fold with your big moves. Or
if they keep saying "go fish" every time you,
and like running scenarios and like trying to exhibit understanding of Survivor becomes a problem. Like it puts a target on your back, even more so than in traditional Survivor. If you look a little bit too competent, then it's a problem. Here, if you look like you understand it all, if you knowingly read a clue, like you know what that's about, and people are like, uh-oh. And I think that's what happened this season. I think that's what happened to Jeremy. I think that's what happened to Josh. And I think that's why this season sucks, is that being good at Survivor was a liability this season. I think maybe we've been a little harsh on Josh and Jeremy because I think the season is shaped up that being good at Survivor is bad for you, which is bad for us. Now, in terms of taking Jeremy out, who's the beneficiary here? Besides, Reed, I think would be the obvious.
Yes, he's the one clear person who benefited from this. So the thing is, it gets a little murky after that, though, because you could go either way on a bunch of other people. I'll go ahead and say I think John does benefit here because we learned last season, like, it's always better to err on the side of going on the attack too soon rather than too late. I mean, LJ was thinking he was going to take Tony out later, never got to because Tony flipped on him first. Same sort of thing. I think it was pretty clear Jeremy was going to go after John. John got him first. So I'll say, I guess, John and by association Jacqueline, they benefit here. I don't know that it's as cut and dry for Missy and Baylor. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the tough was the way to structure the question. Who do they benefit? The answer is we'll see. Was it the right move? I think yes. I think what you said is absolutely true. When dealing with a threat, and I think, undeniably, Jeremy was a threat to win. We thought he was going to win. Yeah. As I just said, he was one of the few remaining players that has an understanding of Survivor, and that's apparently a bad thing. And frankly, if you're in a majority of people that don't, then it is a bad thing. Yeah. I wish for my own personal entertainment that they weren't targeting the people that were good. But if you're not one of those goods, then sure. And here's the thing, I think, the Tony example is perfect. We were uncomfortable with the timing of LJ. I think by the time that we hashed it out, even, that podcast, we were like, but, better late than never. Or not. No, better early than never.
Reverse.
Yes. Not. And then it buried out completely. It's like, no, it was really good that he did. I think Jeremy showed that he was uneasy with John pretty much any time he talked about John this season. Mm-hmm. Up until not including him in the plans of the only other the time that the Hoyopa tribe went to tribal council. So, yeah, Jeremy wasn't on Team John. It was a marriage of convenience. So, yeah, strike it when you want, but especially when you look at this season, and people advocating that, why do it now? Wait 3 days and vote out Jeremy then. Well, that didn't work out so well for Josh. Josh was forced to wait 3 extra days to get rid of Jeremy, and Josh, got to warm the house for Jeremy because he beat him off the island by 3 days.
Oh, phrasing.
So horrible phrasing. So no, you can't wait. He had the moment to strike now. For whatever reason, Missy and Baylor, agreed to it. And we'll talk a bit more about that. Then do it. Because maybe 3 days from now, they can't. Or they're ready for it and Jeremy wins that immunity. And maybe that one immunity is enough to disrupt everything and now you don't have numbers. Do you think they're in a dangerous position, though, doing it now?
Who, Missy and Baylor or John and Jacqueline?
John and Jacqueline. Stick with them.
I feel like you do put a target on yourself doing that. If you keep taking out the leaders, eventually you become the leader, and then the target's on you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's on them now.
Yeah.
Which is why I wonder if this is the right move for Missy and Baylor, because it could work out that this helps Missy fly under the radar now.
Yeah, I mean, one benefit for Missy is she's clearly chosen a side with somebody who is, I think, 100% in her camp. You don't know that about Jeremy and Natalie. I think they probably were. Especially because why wouldn't you want Missy on your side for a final three?
Sure.
But, they were separated, right? Whereas she's been with John the whole time. John came to her, shared the idol information. So, clearly John wanted, he chose her over Kelly and Dale. So you're on a side. But why everybody's advocating that this was too early for John to make this move is there is more people not in his alliance than there are in his alliance.
Well,
potentially.
You're right. So that hinges entirely on the next question I have is, we're just assuming Reed is number 5 in that alliance now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the 5th person to vote tonight. That's the one fact we know.
Right. So, I mean, unless they're complete idiots, which let's not rule that out.
Yes.
Unless they're complete idiots, they have to have some sort of agreement with Reed. Like, okay, you're the swing vote now. You're the number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think and I imagine Reed would have agreed to that. I think, there's some complaint that, the show didn't show enough of why Jeremy went home. To an extent that's true, but I'm just not sure there wasn't much more to it. I think John expressed how he, was uneasy and wanted to go for it, and for whatever reason, Missy agreed to it. And then, Reed was probably like, sure, great. Sounds perfect. Let's do it. I
mean, it really was basically perfect for Reed, because if you're Reed, I mean, obviously you take any chance to stay in the game, but this lines up perfectly because you want to be the 5th wheel to 2 couples. Because at some point, if you are in the final 5, you basically get to pick which couple you want to go to the end with.
Yeah, unless the four of them just decide not you, which is in play, because,
Sure.
you know, if you're a couple, do you want an unattended third? But at the same time, you're gonna get it unless you decide to sacrifice one of your own, so.
Right.
Why not have a third person that's gonna break up the other two? So yeah, why people are worried about this is the potential still exists for Reed now to flip back, take a clearly scorned Natalie, and go with Wes, Keith, Alec, and now they have a majority and John could go home.
That's such a bizarre alliance.
Yeah. See,
I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not convinced. Just those 5 people don't really line up.
yeah, that's why I'm fully prepared to give John all the credit. Now, am I going to couch it in that maybe he didn't run all the numbers and all the scenarios and he hasn't completely thought this through, that he's just going on instinct and I think it worked out? Sure, maybe. The one counter, and you made this point online, most people were saying that about Tony. Nobody wanted to give Tony any credit that he was thinking this stuff out, and he was. He was overthinking this stuff out.
Yeah.
Now with John, we're not getting that, but we were getting some of it. He did clue into the idea that, Jeremy's now gonna find out that I've been lying about this idol stuff.
Uh-huh.
Did he clue in, a day late? Sure. But he did. And then he did
At
something
least he
about
got
it.
there.
Yeah. And I think, everybody wants flawless gameplay, and there's not gonna be that.
No.
But he figured it out, and he did something about it. And what did he do? He killed the witness. And bravo, because that witness was not on your side. That witness was looking to beat you. Not this week, not next week, but in the future.
Well, one issue though is that he killed one of the 2 witnesses.
Yeah. But,
Natalie's still around.
it's true. You can only take one person at a time.
Exactly.
In Survivor. At some point you were going to have to, but yeah, to your point, I'm not that worried about those 5 people getting together. I'm not that worried about, Keith, finally, collecting the savvy and saying, you know what, I'm gonna put aside the violation of Reed looking through my bag and the fact that I've never shared a conversation with Natalie, and this is what we're doing. Like, it could happen. It's possible, especially to your point that as soon as somebody shows some level of ability and leadership, they seem to be taken out at least 2 weeks in a row. But I think John's okay, because especially, he has an idol. That's not nothing. If suddenly people start moving against him next week, I think he'll have enough in it. There'll be enough indication amongst these people. I'm not sure there's a lot of fantastic liars amongst them that he'd be able to sniff that out. And then he would have numbers as 4 or 5 with Reed. And the other thing is why, if you're Reed, why? Other than, now being in control. He could then become the leader of this makeshift 5, but to the point you just made, why would you want to be?
Yes, exactly.
So I think the risk, there is risk in what John did, but I don't think it's as much as what people have been making it out to be. And I think people are making it out to be that because nobody wants to give the guy credit. And maybe also because it's damn, I would have rather see Jeremy win this season than John.
Well, do we lump ourselves in that group then? It's possible that we're not giving John enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is missing is we need to see him talk about the move and why he did it. Or talk about any move and why he did it. The show hasn't given us that. So, in the absence of, strategic conversation, I don't know how much we can fill in. But, I think at least for 3 weeks in a row now, dating back to the Kelly vote, we've been saying, yeah, this was the right move for John. And are we giving him full credit for getting there in the brightest of ways? No, we're not. But I'm not criticizing what he did last night. I think it was the right move. If you are uncomfortable with Jeremy was clearly making him uncomfortable, you have the option to getting rid of him. In fact, last week, when I wasn't trying to talk about how he has the best chance of winning, I was saying that if you're John, don't focus so much about getting Jeremy this week. You'll be able to do it next week if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And he did.
Yes, he did. And it's funny that you touched on the Tony thing, just because if we underestimated John, and I'm still not totally willing to admit that we did so. First of all, when we say John, we should indicate that it's really John and Jacqueline together. They're a cohesive unit. we say John because he's getting the screen time and he found the idol.
And also, like, last night was more John than Jacqueline.
Yes.
I think in previous weeks, we actually did more say Jacqueline. We did say, it's like it was right for Jacqueline to say, hey, these guys aren't on our side. Let's do something about it. I did. You weren't there to talk about it.
Robot Me was there.
Taco overload. But tonight, what we were shown was a conversation between John and Missy. And it was, John, Missy, and Jeremy before that. So this did seem more about John than Jacqueline.
Sure, it did.
But they are, to your point, they are a unit. These are the bizarro version of Boston Rob and Amber.
Right. So we know, though, that they make all the players watch the most recent season before they go out there. So is John trying to copy the Tony game here? Do you think that's what's happening?
It's possible. Or at the very least, he watched it and it's fresh in his mind that, you can flip around and it's not disastrous. I don't know if he's, strictly saying, I gotta pull a Tony here. I'll also say for John that to my earlier point that there are very little fans left. Now that Jeremy's been eliminated, I think the only one I can say 100% is Reed. Reed is a fan. I'm gonna give him that. I'd say there's a chance that Natalie is, but there's also just a chance that, like, this sort of thing is what she's good at. Maybe, she wasn't necessarily a fan of Survivor, but, she knows what to do here. But I'm willing to say that I think John is probably a casual fan. He's probably watched some Survivor here or there, but he's not, analyzing it on the couch. He's not listening to podcasts or talking about it online. There's many types of Survivor fans, and maybe somebody's like, oh, that challenge is really cool, or that person seems pretty awesome. But I do think he's watched the show more than just the past 2 seasons.
So you're terrifying me because that's a pretty apt description of Tony last season. Yeah. As we found out when we talked to him. Like, that's pretty much how Tony described himself.
But I think the difference is when Tony was watching, he was probably like, oh, I'd do this. And if I was ever on Survivor, I'd do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if John has or not. Again, the show hasn't given us anything, so I understand the inclination to not give him any credit. I understand the inclination to kind of treat him like he's a bit of a dullard. Because he does not seem intellectually curious.
Well, here's one thing the show did give us, though. The show told us, or he told us via the show, that he burned the idol clue. Or the idol rules, I guess. Another good move. Yeah, that shows some gameplay. I mean, it's, minor, but it's something. He thought of a detail, he covered up a loose end. No, I think, there's some stuff there. Is it what we would love? Is he the avatar that fans like us would want? Heck no. But, I mean, whether it's him figuring out as he goes along, whether it's piecing together some things that he's seen in the past, but being a little late on the jump. But, like, what, besides losing the Flint and teaming up with Drooshbag, has he done wrong, really? Like, they've made the right moves. Even in Tribal Council, like, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. Or maybe it was just last week when Jeff is like, hey, you guys are in the middle again. He's like, it's not where I'd like to be, but yeah. And then, he didn't say it in the most intelligent way. He's like, well, we have a sign on us that means, and then maybe I will help you. Yeah, it was like, that quick wit of John. But I think he recognizes that being the swing vote isn't the best thing, but that's where they've been, and they've made, they've extracted the maximum amount of power that one could get as a swing vote, and that's the other thing about voting Jeremy off. They extracted maybe as much power as any swing vote ever has in the history of Survivor. Exactly.
Like, they are no longer the swing vote. Like, they're the leader now of whatever little group they put together. Yeah,
this is actually the ideal scenario for a swing vote, is you want to work that into a leadership position, and they did that. They took out the two, I'm going to use this term loosely, but biggest strategic players of the season.
Yeah, I think, clearly the two leaders. I mean, both of the sides that they were on were looking to those people. Right. Now they're not, because they're gone. Yeah. And usually a swing vote is as useful as that vote. Now, because there was two of them, they were useful for 2 votes. But now, they might be useful till the end. Like, I am now putting the odds that, like, John, Jacqueline are probably the top 2 contenders to win this season. Who would have thunk?
Who would have dreamed in their worst nightmares that this could happen? Actually, me. I think before the season, I predicted, like, this cast is so terrible, we're going to get an awful winner. So,
hey, to something, you have John in your fantasy pool, I have Jacqueline, so maybe there was something there. Not really, though.
No, there's not. So, here's what I wonder, because as we were watching this, Jeremy and Natalie give up their reward, and John and Jacqueline have the chance to send Jeremy to Exile Island. Do you think that if Jeremy and Natalie don't take that chance to give up their reward, that John and Jacqueline still flip on them?
No, in fact, I think maybe they don't at all if they didn't do that. In a weird way, giving up that reward spelled Jeremy's doom, but not in the way that, people would think. It's not that they revealed themselves as such strategic thinkers that we need to grab them. I think for that day, it actually worked. I think John and Jacqueline was like, that wasn't really nice. Yeah, that was good. We've been included. And that's why when it first happened, I didn't think it was like a big payoff. Never give something up expecting a lot. But I thought John and Jacqueline were maybe the right people to do it with.
Right.
But what ended up happening is by not being on the reward, Jeremy got sent to Exile Island. Being sent to Exile Island blew up John's spot with the idol, and thus Jeremy went home.
Right. So that's why I'm thinking if Jeremy doesn't give up the reward and doesn't end up on exile, maybe they don't take him out. I mean, maybe John doesn't have to cover his tracks.
I think it was 100% motivated by the fact it's like, the longer Jeremy's out here now, the more I am in trouble. Just from Jeremy, really. I mean, I don't think the news of his idol going out there was going to damage him that much more because he already told Missy, thus telling Baylor. And with the other side knowing, who cares? But it's clear that, and I think this was a flaw of Jeremy's game throughout that we pointed out, he's not that great at hiding his displeasure with people. So probably within that conversation and it's just being around Jeremy, it's like, I now have a problem. And in fact, even before then, John probably had predicted, oh no, I have a problem. And that might just be predicated by, say, the treatment that Jeremy, or John got from Jeremy following the Drew vote. That is like, Jeremy is not somebody that you want to be pissed off with you. I have now created a scenario where he'll be pissed off with me and I should just get rid of him. So yeah, if Jeremy was just sitting there on the yacht eating sandwiches, I think he would still be in the game today.
Probably. I don't think they turn on him yet. I think it's next vote they do.
No, like they could have still made the move and maybe it would have been successful, but maybe not though. I mean, our entire earlier point was this could have been the opportunity. Maybe surviving this vote would have worked out for the game for Jeremy.
Maybe.
So the lesson, don't give up your rewards.
Yes.
And it's tough. It's tough because there's been also people that have been punished for keeping rewards or for going on rewards and being away on the reward. I think
I'm looking at you, Johnny Fairplay and Burton.
Yeah. I think the key is you need to just be really good at your social game and up front. Tyson went around eating everything and going on every reward and then stealing food that nobody knew about and nobody cared because he's fun. They like Tyson. Yeah. So I think people who get themselves tripped up, by being out on a reward and people getting bitter that they didn't pick them or whatever that probably exposes bigger holes in their, social game. But giving up something, there's just no benefit. You're never going to get repaid and you shouldn't expect it.
Yeah, what you should do is come back from the reward challenge and offer people half of a mint that's in your mouth.
Yeah, well, that always works. I mean, She went to the finals.
Exactly. People love that.
Although maybe that's why they didn't vote for her in the end. I glossed over it because I don't think we're that interested, but, whatever. Let's talk about it. Missy and Baylor, why? Why do you think they did it? Because we have no real indication.
I don't really know. I guess at some point, Missy figured, yes, they were going to have to turn on Jeremy. I think really Missy doesn't care as long as it's her and Baylor getting to that Final Four group. I don't think she really cares who it's with. Maybe John came to her with that Final Four deal first. Mm-hmm. And so that made her say, okay, well, you pitched it first. We're with you.
Yeah, I think if she had her druthers, she wouldn't have done it. She had a strong bond with Natalie Jeremy and a strong bond with John and Jacqueline. She would have loved to have kept that six together, but I'm guessing John in their conversation made it clear that that's not happening. So it's time to pick a side, and she picked the side with the guy with the idol. Maybe it's just that simple.
Yeah, and what the Missy?
Exactly.
As Natalie would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big potential fallout is, now perhaps the lone remaining strong player is pissed at them.
The problem is, I don't know what opportunity she's going to have to take any sort of revenge. Although, actually, you know what? We'll get to it in prediction. I do have a very long shot way that she could, but we'll see.
I'll just say this. Eventually, you can't make a decision that won't piss somebody off.
Right, exactly.
So, you do the math, you figure it out, and I think modern Survivor has shown us that if you're going up against a power player, you shoot when you can, because you might not get a chance, as, everybody on Tyson's season found out, as everybody on Boston Rob's season found out.
Right.
There were probably opportunities to take Tom Plow. Now, look, is somebody going to go on a Tom run? No, that's never happening again. In fact, we don't have this in the breakdown. I do want to mention it just briefly. What do you think of the immunity challenge?
Oh, we're talking about the one with the feet?
The feet, yeah.
Who cares? They move some blocks with their feet.
Yeah. No, I'm going to say this. It's like, I actually thought it was an interesting challenge because it was a little different. It was a little challenge. But I think it also illustrates why we don't talk about challenges, because who cares? Yes. It's that completely random. Now they've got you building puzzles with your feet. Like, there's nobody that's going to be good at everything. Right. So, challenges, in a way, don't really matter in terms of player evaluation. If Baylor could win one, then who cares? So that's why we don't talk about it. It's part of the television show. It can upset the apple cart if you win the right one at the right moment. But in terms of, like, who's good, who's not good, I think in modern Survivor, challenge winning means nothing.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point that it's just carnival games, and it really is just a game of chance. Like, yes, there is some skill involved, but there's not necessarily any physical attributes that are going to make you better or worse at some of these challenges.
Yeah, and more it's like, okay, if your plan is, I'm just going to win me some challenges, you're not going to do well.
Yes, find a different plan.
Yeah, it's like, hopefully you're strong enough to win that last challenge. That's still pretty important, and why a player like Sareem could probably never win Survivor, because she can't get herself into the finals. But other than that, it's a crapshoot. People are moving around pieces with their dainty little feet. So, to my earlier point about Natalie getting burned, it happens. Try to get rid of her before she can do any damage, and try not to leave a lot of paths for her to do damage. And as much as I like Natalie, she's probably the person I like most in the remaining members of the cast, low bar. I'm not sure she has built social bonds with the people she would need to in order to do well.
Well, and I think the same sort of thing that we were talking about with Jeremy, and the reason that we thought that Jeremy might be heading for a win, is the same reason that I'm not convinced that Natalie is heading for a win, because she's not getting the screen time that would give her a winner's edit. And since we bring this up constantly, we should probably discuss what exactly a winner's edit is, and why we were convinced, actually, maybe weren't convinced, that Jeremy had it going.
Yeah, we had discussions. Is he getting one? Is Josh getting one? And I think the answer is, I don't know if either of them are. Like, maybe. We saw the inklings of a possible winner's edit, but we never said, that's the winner's edit.
Yeah, I think I was I was more strongly leaning towards Jeremy having it than you were. You were pretty convinced that nobody really had it yet.
Yeah, because there were so many flaws apparent, and it was just like, in a season like this, I don't think anybody's going to get one. What is a winner's edit? I talked a bit about this with Emma last week, because my brother-in-law floated the crazy idea that, is Jacqueline getting one? And again, I want to reiterate, no! No! She might win. That'd be awesome for me at this point. That might be what I'm cheering for. Barring a Natalie amazing comeback. But no, a winner's edit. What does it require? I'm tempted to say it's like the, old Supreme Court definition of pornography, and that you know it when you see it. Except that nobody seems to know it when they see it.
Apparently not.
Everybody now is like, oh, at least this isn't going to be an obvious season where we all know that Tony's going to win. I'm like, bullshit. Most of you people, until the moment Spencer was taken out in the final, were like, Tony can't win.
Spencer had so many people on that bandwagon, and we were just like, really?
Yeah, we were just almost shaking in anger at times. It's like, no, people, Spencer is not that great. You need to come around to the idea that Tony is probably our winner.
Yes, this is the winner's edit.
Yeah. So what is it? First off, you need to be a heavily featured member of the story. So that's the first thing. If you are not a prominent actor in the majority of the episodes, you're not getting a winner's edit. It doesn't mean that you can't win. It just means you're not getting a winner's edit.
Yes. Point number 1, winner's edit, screen time. Screen time.
Yeah, and which is why, miss me with that Jacqueline talk, miss me with that Reed talk. No, I don't know if anybody's giving Reed talk. But yeah, you prominent to be a winner's edit. Next is that you need to be, shown in a positive light. Either positive from like this is a great person, or positive in this is a great player. You need to be allowed to talk about yourself a lot, in interviews. You need to have other players talking about you, and you need to have some shots or storyline developed for you that you could then, in the end, the editors could put together in your highlight reel when they come back from commercial of Jeff reading the final votes, and it's like, 18 players, 1 survivor, this person.
Yeah, and a good example of this is they'll try to make you sympathetic in some way. That's generally going to happen, whether it's you're charming, people are somehow drawn to you emotionally, they're rooting for you in some way. They showed Tyson crying about his girlfriend, which is just so not part of Tyson's personality, but they're trying to make people more sympathetic to him. Like, oh, look, he's a real human.
Mm-hmm.
With Cochran, it was, oh, look at him. He's so self-deprecating. Isn't he so cute? Don't you just want him to win? It's those sorts of things.
Yeah. And with Cochran especially is that, he was constantly getting, interview time.
Yes.
Confessional time.
Although that's partly, though, just because Cochran is a very good editor.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing as Penner. Penner's going to get a lot of confessionals, not because he's getting the winner's edit, but because he's really good at giving confessionals.
Yeah, no, it's what's being said in the confessional. Because, yes,
right.
Getting a lot of confessionals doesn't necessarily make it a winner's edit. Maybe you're just the narrator. Which is what people were getting confused about with Spencer. It's if your confessionals are frequently about you and your thought process, both strategic thought process or just what you think of what's going on in the game or what this experience means to you, then that's a winner's edit. If you're the person that's describing the action and what's going on in camp, what was going on in a challenge, that's just, you're a good person at summarizing things.
Yep.
So yeah, you need to, they've explored you as a character in your inner life, which again is not happening with somebody like Jacqueline, who, tell me something about her besides her lack of uterus.
Oh, damn, that was the one thing I could tell you about her.
And they haven't actually talked about that in the show yet.
No, they haven't, to their credit. Although, if we get that at some point, pretty good sign one of those two is winning.
Yeah, and it helps to be the narrator of the season, but it's not necessary that makes you the winner's edit. But it's not a winner's edit unless you get a part of the narration. You get to describe yourself, at the very least.
Yes.
And it doesn't, like, modern winner's edit, to your point, is they will cast you more sympathetically. But there has been in the past, and probably because some of them were just completely unsympathetic, that at least they will highlight, how strategic you are, how smart you are. Like in Thailand, I don't think,
that was the prime example.
Yeah. Brian Heidig did not get, any kind of sympathy. He was more like, oh no, my wife showed my nice house. And my hot
you
wife.
Don't get the warm and fuzzies from the Brian Heidig edit.
But they did feature that he was in control all the time, to the point where they might exaggerate the level of control a winner has.
Right.
And then a few other just kind of, things to look for. These aren't necessarily in every winner's edit, but when you see it, you need to be ding, 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 ding. Is if you get a sweeping shot, like a hero shot of you, that's most likely the winner, unless there's some kind of ironic scoring to it.
Yeah, or unless your name is Ozzy.
Yes. If you're somebody the show is just going to love anyway. But yeah, so probably the most talked about prominent winners edits of all time was Earl.
Yes, the Earl Exile Island shot.
Yeah, so he climbs to the top of a mountain. Helicopter does a nice, 180 shot with, looking up, I'm sure in one early cut of that footage, they probably had, the Lion King playing behind it. This is, look at how
he's holding up a baby.
Yeah, look how amazing this is. Now, the counter is in, Blood vs. Water, they gave Aris the big mountaintop one, but they underscored it with conversations with, hey, let's vote him out. They were putting the clown shoes on Aris in that. Yes. So you need, the context is important, but if you get, a big shot of, look how amazing this, and let's face it, guy is, that's a winner's edit.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're rattling off winners' edits, you'll notice a trend among them.
There's been some women. I mean, at a certain point, Kim didn't get it right away, and I think that was a facet of her game. She was lying low at the beginning. But, yeah, she was getting the winner's edit at the end. There was not an episode that didn't check in with her several times.
Mostly because they had to at that point.
Yeah. But that actually might be the list.
Yeah, it might be. It might begin and end with Kim.
I was thinking, readers out there, make a case for another woman that got what we are describing as the winner's edit. Because I wouldn't say Parvati and Micronesia did at all.
No, I don't think so.
I think
either.
her win was fairly surprising when it came along. It felt like Amanda was getting that. And obviously, early on, they were focused a little more on Ozzy. And more, I think they were interested in making those women look like villainous.
Yeah, so listeners, if you have any ideas, send us to them. Or send them to us, even. But
yeah, so to that point, we like to talk about the edit and the storytelling just as much as we like to talk about the gameplay itself. And that's legitimate. I genuinely like to do that. That is the information given to us. But let's cool it with the winner's edit talk. Not every winner gets a winner's edit. Not every person that gets an extra screen time is getting a winner's edit. I think you can build an easy case that John has been getting a good edit. But he hasn't been getting a winner's edit.
Right. There is a line there, and I don't think he has crossed it yet.
He's been prominent enough in the show from the very beginning, where the first episode, I think he went into the dead dad talk. He was able to describe why he, came clean about losing the Flint. John has been ever present. Mm-hmm. So yes, he could easily be the winner. The show is building a story, but they haven't been building, this is the amazing winner, John. They have not been letting him talk about why he's doing the things he's doing in the show.
Because I don't know that he can coherently do so.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Well, let's talk about some people who aren't getting quite as much screen time. Because these are the only two that I can see and the chances here are very, very slim. What's left for Natalie and Keith? Is there any road to victory for either of them? Let's start with Natalie.
Yes. If she could, first off, if she can get to the end, she could win. She could beat anybody. Not necessarily that she would, but she could. Though that jury could vote for her, especially because getting there would be a pretty impressive task.
It'd be an uphill climb to get there.
What would she need to do? The first thing she would need to do is I think she needs to win immunity this week. She doesn't need to go on, an immunity run, but she needs to win timely immunities. At the time when suddenly now they can't vote for her because she would be the easy vote next week. So then they need to come up with a plan B, which might be enough to expose cracks and problems. Maybe instead of that, they've decided, okay, well now is the time to take out Keith, and Keith perks up to that, uses his idol, somebody important goes home. Now the dynamics have changed. What she needs to do is pull together those people that have been left out and make it clear that she's a free agent. That, use me and we can take them out. And she would need Reed to become more ambitious than would be a good idea for him.
So my plan is actually, I think, has better odds than yours.
All right.
I think she has to go back to, and I don't know how good her acting is, she has to go back to Missy, hat in hand, and be like, look, good job. You got Jeremy. We're close. I can't believe you didn't tell me, but you know what? I understand why you did it. We're aligned. Do basically what Tony's Alliance did. You're Trish, you're Jeffra. You come back and say, all right, you know what? I understand why you did it. Fine. We're still an alliance. I'm a little hurt you didn't tell me, though. You have to play Missy. If only so you can figure out where the votes are going next. And then you have to get word to Keith to use his idol on the person that would be going home next. Because how badass would it be if Natalie can mastermind a strategy that gets Keith to use his idol and then they vote out Missy?
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty good. And that might be the one way it would work with Keith, to take out a Missy Baylor. It would probably be more badass if it took out John. Just because it also...
that would be the better decision if they went after John. But I think Natalie would be the type that would go after Missy instead.
Yeah. I say you're right. If she could get back with that alliance, that provides her a better path. I guess I didn't think of that because the previews suggest that she's going to do anything but. So it didn't, in the hypotheticals, it didn't enter my mind. The problem is I just don't see Keith playing that idol for anybody but him or Wes.
Right. And I think that's what you need to do is if you're going back to Missy, you need to say like, all right, look, sorry, we're back together. We're cool. Now let's take out Keith or Wes. And then, we even say like, oh, you know what? We'll split the votes.
There you go. And now they could feel a little more comfortable with it. They have the 5, if we're assuming that Reed is still part of that 5. Missy or Natalie makes 6. Now you can easily do a 3-3. At that point, maybe you don't even need Keith to play the idol. You just don't be one of the 3-3. Now it becomes 4-3-2. Or, yeah, that's right. That's the right math. Yeah. And then things kind of cascade from there until she's in the right position.
And much like you, I don't think this is going to happen. It would be great if it did, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, the big negative, and again, first off, that would be the best. A few weeks ago, when we were saying what could, resurrect this season, what good things could happen, my number one was Natalie winning. And that was while Jeremy was still in it. It was just like, Natalie winning would be far more interesting than Jeremy winning.
I think you push this season up almost towards a Fiji level if that happens.
Possibly, like, it could be Guatemala. Like, she could be Danny, right?
Yeah, it could get in that territory.
Now, there aren't the characters that Guatemala had, so that could be the problem. Yeah, and so that'd be nice, and maybe it's just because she's been in Jeremy's shadow this whole time. And there's still time that this could be, the second half could be the story of Natalie's underdog rise. And maybe you don't get to play an underdog story if you featured her more. But I think more that this isn't working out for Natalie is just everything she's done has been in the margins for the show.
Yeah, and we've had some glimpses of smart things that she's done.
Oh yeah, no, we've picked up on it, but we're looking for that stuff.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to find any shred of strategy in this season or good gameplay.
So it's still in play. We'll get to it in a second. She's not 0%. Who's the next person you want to talk about?
Keith. And the reason why I want to discuss this is this episode broke horribly in terms of what could have worked for Keith, because at the start of the episode, and by the end of the episode, you totally forget this because of what happens at the end, but Keith is saying he basically is saying he's going to convince everyone to vote for him, and then he's going to play his idol, which, if Reed hadn't discovered the idol, probably would have worked. I think these people would have fallen for that because Keith doesn't seem like the type that's smart enough to concoct that sort of plan. So if he just gets all pissy and he's like, oh, I can't believe you guys, and just acts like a total and he could be like, fine, vote me out, then they probably would, and he could have played his idol successfully. But
because it seemed like the idea that Keith could have an idol didn't enter anyone's thought at all.
Right.
To the point where people that, Baylor was, I think, the one that gave mostly that interview, so that's fair. She wasn't with Keith for the first part. It didn't even seem to clue into other people. It's like, how did Keith find it? It's like, well, he went to Exile Island, morons. He came back and told you all about Jeremy having the idol. Like, he had every opportunity in the world. But yeah, I don't think it entered anybody's thought process that he had it.
So I can give a little bit more credit to Keith again, and I can only give out small doses of credit.
Oh, so small.
Yeah, exactly. So Keith, Wes, and Alec all voted for Reed, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's the reason why Keith didn't play his idol at Tribal Council, because those three, combined with any sort of vote split, were going to make Reed go home.
Yeah.
If that was where the votes were going to be split.
And some credit is that they sniffed out that a vote split was on the table.
Right.
So however that happened, good on them.
But here's the interesting thing to me is Keith's idol is exceptionally powerful. I guess this also applies to John's. I mean, it hasn't been discussed whether this was within the rules or not. I would assume that it is. They could essentially will their idol to somebody else. So you leave your idol back at camp and you say, listen, if they do take me out this week, go back. My idol's right here. It's yours now. They can leave it to Wes or Jacqueline if they get blindsided.
Yeah, I assume that's allowable. I
would assume too.
I can't understand any reason why it wouldn't be.
So it makes that idol a little more powerful then, because you have to get someone to play the idol incorrectly rather than blindsiding them. Because if you blindside them, that idol is still in play.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is, you'd never go to Tribal Council without the idol. So then the only question is, would they allow somebody, once they voted off, to pass it along? And that I could see, no. You're out. You don't get to, you're not supposed to interact. Now, obviously, they always do. But, so you might not be able to hand it to somebody on your way out. But to your point, could you tell them where it is, been left? Yeah, I mean, people get voted out and you get to use their sweater. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to use their idol.
So that's how I'd get around it. I would just be like, I'd bring my stuff to the tribal council or whatever, and then I'd say, if I'm Keith, I say to Wes, listen, if I get voted out, I'm taking your bag with me. And you take mine because it's got the idol in it.
Well, okay, now we're getting deep into hypotheticals because there's no way.
So this is never going to
Keith
happen because I don't give these people enough credit to pull something like this off.
And especially that person. Keith is
yes.
Maybe like earlier discussed. These are people that are not Survivor savvy or even hostile to the concept. Keith might be the number one person on that, to the point where I was close to wanting to put him in the 0% club, but we'll get into that in a second. Is there a chance? Yeah, I mean, idol helps. Having two people, maybe this is a season where as soon as you rise to the top, you get chopped off, and Keith would never be that person. The one thing I'd say is, I think adorable Keith is not so adorable. And I'm not sure he's convincing a jury made up of these people to vote for him, because I think as more and more days go by, he's less folksy and, colorful and more just annoying and grumpy.
Yeah. I've said at least multiple times on this podcast that Keith is adorable. And I don't mean that in the sense that he's totally lovable and everyone would vote for him. I just mean he's been kind of entertaining television.
Yeah.
They're not all seeing that necessarily.
Exactly. A lot of his best stuff has been for our benefit only. I guess how he could win is another thing is he's proven reasonably adept at these little challenges. So again, with the idol, with winning timely immunities, and then getting there to the end with Baylor Missy, then yeah, sure, Keith wins.
Yeah, he has to get to the end with the right crew. And Alec could be lumped in there too.
I guess Alec West, really.
Alec West, Missy, or Baylor, some combo of them, and then he stands a chance. But
and it could be just like they keep feeling that, okay, we can take care of business with Keith later until later, it doesn't materialize. So it's possible.
Yeah. We're really grasping at straws for ways that this season could turn out either well or at least interesting. But now that Jeremy and Josh are gone, what's the ceiling on what we can expect? How good can this season possibly be?
So a lot of the reaction to last night's episode was, hey, this was a great episode. What a blindside. It was spectacular. Now, some people were like, okay, enough Survivor with the blindsides. You're not playing fair. Which I think is somewhat legitimate, although I do think in this instance that there just might not have been that much fair. I think John might have made an 11th hour decision on this one. But as exciting as it might have been for something like this to happen that you couldn't have seen, I think a good comp might be Marquesas, in that the Row 2-4 was an amazing moment for Survivor, but it left us with a bunch of nothing. A bunch of uninteresting people. And I think that's what happened. It's like, as exciting, as interesting, I think the season will always be framed as the season where the top two power players were the first two taken out post-merge. Is everybody really excited to sign up for the season of John and Jacqueline? Because I think that's what we got here. The blandest of the bland is leading the blind.
Wow. Way to get around that tongue twister. Yeah, I mean, there's really, like I said, the comp with Marquesas was really the best thing I could come up with. And if you remember from our summer rankings, we did not rank Marquesas very highly.
Yeah, and I think there's also a ceiling, because it's like, yeah, okay, a lot of crazy stuff could happen now. Like, what we've learned from here on out is almost basically nothing. Like, we don't know. It's what's going to happen from here. But I kind of feel like nothing intelligent or good is what's going to happen, because look who's there. And is it exciting to see a bunch of people bumbling together into randomness? Maybe for some people, but not me. It's like, yeah, you've seen the 76ers play sadly the Lakers, but it might lead to a lot of wacky, crazy stuff. But, I'd rather just watch people who are good at playing basketball.
Exactly. And this crew is not that type.
One point that I do want to make that doesn't fit with this segment that I should have made earlier, about John's play and John and Jacqueline. Right, John and Jacqueline. Why it was a good move, and some people are like, "Oh, they've pissed everybody off. How could they expect to win?" Have they really? Like, yeah, it's like they flipped on everybody, but it's like, well, for one, they didn't flip on John and Jacqueline or on Missy Baylor or John and Jacqueline, for instance.
That's true.
But there's a potential for them smoothing it over with Keith and Wes and everybody who was pissed off at them, because it's like, we didn't flip on you guys, we flipped on Josh. And your game isn't over anymore. Look, we just got rid of Jeremy. It's a brand new day. What, in terms of what would be interesting, or how this season could be good from here on out, which I don't know if it can be, but there's still the potential for John and Jacqueline to resurrect that whole couples alliance now. Like, nobody's saying they need to have Reed as their fifth or bring back Natalie back in. Why not make it John, Jacqueline, Missy Baylor, Wes, Keith?
Well, see, it's funny that you said that, because I was thinking along the same lines, but not with Wes Keith, because I'm thinking Missy couldn't do it, but Baylor could certainly bring in Alec as that fifth. I don't think that Missy is necessarily married to the idea of Reed being the fifth, or, well, maybe she is married to the idea and she's going to divorce it. And Alec is, could be a useful fifth for them, because you'd rather bring along someone that has no utility, that's going to only be there to be a vote for you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what Alec could be, much more so than Reed.
Yeah, and if you want to get back to, the beginning of this podcast and my rant, Reed is now the most knowledgeable Survivor contestant left. And they hate that. That's it. They're allergic to that. So yeah, why do you want Reed up in there? And this episode proved that, given opportunity or motivation, he can prove to be a pretty, a relatively dangerous and canny player. I'd say get rid of him, sure. Like, nothing that's happened before, I think, is going to preclude John and Jacqueline from being able to work with almost everybody left. Because really, they were just the lovable, dumb couple making a decision. And since they, flip from one to the other, they could just make the point, it's like, we didn't want Jeremy or Josh to win, but it doesn't mean we don't want to work with you. I think the only person they've completely burned at this point now is Natalie.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if they played it right, they could still bring her back into the fold. It would be very difficult. I don't know that it's worthwhile either.
For me, I would rather bring, Wes back or Keith back into the fold. They've had a previous working relationship with Keith, both John and Missy. He was pissed at them before, but now you just say to him, "Hey, Keith, it wasn't about you. We're still good, right?" Like,
it's not you, it's me.
No, it's not you, it's Josh. But if John is taking lessons from Tony, isn't now Keith the biggest stalking horse because of his idol?
I guess. I mean, someone has to be, right?
I mean, if it's not him, it's John, right? They're like, there is no.
Exactly.
I mean, or if you can convince people that physical strength means anything, then it's Wes, who isn't as strong as John. Yes. Like, those are your best options if you're trying to manufacture a threat to keep your alliance off of you. Now, again, do we think that's what John's doing? No, but at the same time, maybe at some point, results need to speak for themselves, and we need to give the guy a little bit of credit. I do want an interview, though. I want him to give a confessional where it's like, I don't think he's going to be like, ha 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 ha, I masterminded my entire plan, but more like, yeah, it was dangerous playing with Jeremy, so it was time to get rid of him and we can reset from there. Alright, so, this is usually the time when we induct people into the 0% club, and, there's not a whole lot of people left, John.
Is Alec in there?
Yeah, I want to review where we're at, cause I think we're done with the 0% club, and that, it was fun, but eventually it's just be like, hey, we've said nobody has a chance to win. So, so far, and you never remember who you put in.
I don't.
You don't write it down, so this it's possible that maybe one of these names or two is not quite right, but I think it is. So I think you inducted Alec.
If I didn't, I would like to do so now.
Okay, there we go. Alec, Jacqueline, I believe Alec, Baylor, there was Alec, and then there was Missy, Alec, Wes, Alec. Okay, so that's who you had.
I'm not positive that I put Baylor in there.
Do you want to? Come on.
I kind of don't.
All right.
because it's not 0%. It's very, very
All right.
low.
Unless somebody wants to go back and confirm whether he put Baylor in or not. I'm pretty sure you did. And dismissive, I hate all these people. I think you put in like 7 people at one point.
I probably did. Just dumped
her
them
out.
all in.
I had all of those people except for Jacqueline. So what that leaves you, and we'll say you have Baylor now. So you have Baylor, John, Natalie, and Keith. I think that's it. I think that's the only people that you haven't, if we're going to say Baylor. And then, I do have Baylor in, but have Jacqueline out. How do you feel about this?
Well, the only one I'm a little bit nervous about is Jacqueline. And even then, I put her, some combo of her and John in the top 75%. Split that up amongst those two, however you want to. But I'd say those two combined are like a 75% chance. So that's a little worrying if you've got Jacqueline in the 0% club.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have a lot of people left, but I still feel alright about it because I think just, looking at the edit, which at this point, I don't know if that was a worthwhile exercise. The edit has led us majorly astray. But, there's pieces enough for John, for Jacqueline. Keith, I'm sorry, was, a comedic presence, a character throughout, so sure. Natalie never did anything to suggest that she couldn't be in. But, Alec, Alec is never winning Survivor. I don't care if he plays 1,000 times. In fact, as bad as he's looked on TV, he's looked worse in things that don't make TV.
Yeah, he showed me. Actually, our friend Will showed me the secret scene with Alec this week, and it was just cringeworthy.
Yeah, he clearly does not get it on any level. He doesn't know what success in Survivor is, and
life.
Yeah, exactly. Or life.
Just expand that.
Fantastic. He's just acting like this is the frat house. This is his social circle where he can just be a jerk, and people keep him around. I don't know. And it's just like you make people feel bad. It's like, no, it's like never. And I don't care if you grow 15 years. You will never be good at Survivor, and you never should have been on Survivor, Alec. I can make an argument that Drew was decent casting because the episode of his removal was fantastic.
It was very entertaining.
And I could see, Survivor doesn't cast everybody to be the winner.
No. They actively cast some people to not be the winner.
Yeah, I could see them having Drew in casting as this is going to be fantastic when he implodes, and there's like 1,000% chance that it's going to happen. And then it's okay, sure, he has a brother. And which breaks down the flaws of the season. It's they might have gotten a few good casting choices, but then they came with a lot of dead weight. So yeah, Alec never. For me, Baylor, she can't win. Nobody likes her. And she's 20 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think people are understanding just how freaking young she is. And maybe it's because some of our listeners are that young.
Part of it is too, when you are that young, you don't realize that everyone hates you.
Yeah.
It's not until you hit, and I'm being a little generous here even, when you hit about 25, then people start to respect you.
Yeah. And sometimes that bar changes because there's some people that are...
You can be the exception.
But Baylor is not.
No.
Try to explain to me a world in which Keith or Josh or Jeremy gives her a vote. And obviously it's not going to happen with Alec and Wes, right? So, yeah. And one of the reasons why Missy, who I also have in 0% Club, because she's so unlikable. And the show has no compunction about making her look unlikable, which they do not to winners edit. Sure, a lot of women don't get their winners edit, but they don't get a loser edit, other than Jenna Maraska.
She's getting more of a Sherry from Caramoan edit.
Yeah. But one of the things we don't like about Missy is how overprotective she is of Baylor, which is, yes, annoying. But again, Baylor's 20. She's probably still living at home. She's only 1 year away from high school. She's still, the child that she was doing stuff for. So it's not as aggressively awful as if she was playing Mama Bear with a 24-year-old even. It's still annoying. It's still not great.
Yeah, but it's still not good TV.
But if she's still treating Baylor like a child, it's because Baylor is a child. She was not legally allowed to drink last night. And then Wes, what have we gotten out of Wes? That he ate too much tacos. That guy's not well.
Oh, no. So we actually forgot to bring this up. Wes entered the cat pantheon by misusing Touche this week.
Oh, I missed that.
He is the spiritual successor to Cat.
I was more picking up on his hashtag blindsided.
Oh, that too. And that is another thing. He really is the male Cat at this point.
So I guess he's coming back.
He's gonna get fake boobs.
You just gotta find a Big Brother person to date, and, I bet he'll be attending all those bars, so.
Alright, let's get some predictions here.
So, yeah, we're not gonna now, give people 0% chance, because at this point, somebody's gotta win this friggin' season. Now, who's gonna go next week?
Okay, so it's gotta be predictable, right? I think that alliance of 5 is going to hold with Reed as the 5th, and Natalie is probably the most obvious target, but I can see a possibility where it's not her. So I'll say Wes is the one that goes, because I think you kind of hit on something earlier with Keith being the bigger target because he has the idol. So there's going to be some attempt to get either Keith or Wes out, and I'll pick Wes just because why not?
And do you want to have a backup in case he wins immunity or no?
Nope.
Okay, yeah. I'm just going to say Natalie. Okay. And again, I think that's actually probably the second or maybe third episode in a row where I'm like, sure, they're showing that person scramble. It's not going to work. And I was like, yeah, so Reed's going home. And I was wrong. But I think what the preview shows is, Natalie's, trying stuff. But what she's trying is to find an idol. Well, there isn't one.
Yeah.
So
that's not encouraging.
Yeah, I think her big move is to do something that isn't there. And that I don't think she can even pretend, because the person she seems to be wanting to go up against has the idol. Right,
and she should kind of suspect that just based on the conversation that she and Jeremy had with him.
Yeah, I think that, it'll be one of those edits where, they show her stirring the pot, doing whatever she can, but I think it's futile, and she goes home.
So what if they showed us that? Because she goes looking for the idol, doesn't find it, and then tells everybody, hey, listen, John has the idol, we gotta get him out. What if that is how she ends up with those 5?
Yeah, no, it's totally possible because, as we said, being in the driver's seat has been a really terrible seat so far. So I think John is vulnerable, which everybody was like, see, that's why it was a bad move. It's like, well, look, sometimes you got to put your neck out there.
Right. You have to take a risk at some point.
If he goes home next week, I'm still not willing to say that voting Jeremy out was a bad idea, because
no, I still think it's the right time.
Keeping Jeremy in the game isn't helping John win Survivor.
No.
It's helping Jeremy win Survivor, which I think is buried in a lot of those comments of John is stupid. It's like, yeah, I think you probably would rather Jeremy win than John, which is perfectly understandable. Me too. But
me too.
John doesn't.
But we're not John. Well, I'm John, but not that John.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're in line for a predictable boot, but going back to an earlier discussion, we thought that was happening a lot last season and it never materialized.
Very true.
They kept switching it up, but I'm not willing to call John Tony yet. But there has been some Tony-esque moves, so we will give him a bit of a nod. And just as a kind of a notice to our listeners, y'all didn't think Tony was doing things right either.
I think by this point though, Tony he'd hooked us. We were on board.
Oh no, you and I, we were totally drinking the Tony Kool-Aid, and it wasn't just because he was DMing us. It was like, no, wow. This stuff's working. He has a greater tolerance for risk than we ever will. And I think if anybody's going to learn anything from the 20 game, we always thought, if you try to learn anything, you're just going to lose. But maybe that is the one lesson, that risks are necessary. The absence of risk is just as risky in Survivor as risks themselves.
Right. As
Jervis could tell you.
Well put.
All right. So next week, you guys are having a big holiday or something?
Is it Christmas?
It might as well be.
I haven't looked at the calendar. I don't know.
I don't understand how, frankly, the big difference between your Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Well, I don't understand how your metric calendar works up there in Canada anyway.
Yeah, 30 days every month. So, yeah, it's the holiday on our normal recording time, but we're going to do it anyway. I'm thankful to have you as listeners, so that's what we will do.
Oh, I thought you were going to you'd be thankful for having me as a podcast
I was going to go there, and then I don't know.
It seems too sentimental for us.
Yeah, it's like,
we're not that type.
Robot Andy would never say that to Robot John.
Exactly.
Let's just say Robot. Yeah.
Robot? Been watching too much Futurama. All right, so tell people how they can get in contact with us.
Contact us on Twitter at Purple Rock Pod, so I'll know that something's up this episode. I gotta not have my phone near me. Email us, purplerockpodcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment on our blog at purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com. It's a good spot. We're getting some more comments. I like it.
We are. We're actually getting some fairly intelligent comments there, which is nice.
Yeah, there's only so much you can say in 140 characters.
Anything else?
Theme music?